Welcome to my kitchen here in the Netherlands, my cat Fuzzle, and I'm going to get into the banded hip capsule mobilization here. I'm just walking forward in kind of a child's pose, keeping the tension loaded up in the band, and I'm going to floss back and forth. So basically I'm just pushing forward, keeping the glutes, everything squeezed, and then I'm backing up to let the band stretch deeper into the hip capsule. Speeding up the video here, working into some of the internal rotation. I'm just spending some time, usually about 2 minutes on each side. Moving into the banded hamstring floss, here I'm going to walk forward the single leg, and I'll move now in and out of that peak tension. You want to fire up the quads, that classic cue of locking out the knee, so that you get a good chance to really mobilize that hamstring. I'm just spending some time here, about 2 minutes on each side. Next, working into the banded mountain, and here we're going to be using the concentric contraction along the posterior chain to stand, and then the eccentric, letting the muscle lengthen into the stretch, inhaling and exhaling. Just doing this as sort of a flossing action in and out of the range of motion, focusing on getting tight at the top so we really get a sense of squeezing through the glutes and the hamstrings. Afterwards, we can do a little retest, and the students can have a chance to notice the difference in the two sides, the hip they've mobilized and the other side. Moving to the next mobilization, we're going to step the foot into the band. I'll pull it up around the gluteal fold, just underneath. Then as I move that same side leg back into extension, we're going to isolate the psoas muscle, the hip flexors, keeping an internal rotation on that back leg, and then flossing, making sure that you get tight at the top so you really squeeze that butt. Make sure that you get a good mobilization along the front of the hip. Here I'm using the non-exercising hand to actually self-adjust. I'm keeping my ribs in. My tendency is to overextend. Now I'm working into the contract-relax version, so we put the knee on the floor, and now I'm going to inhale and get tight for 5 seconds. On the exhale, I'm going to relax and let that anterior hip mobilize. The banded knee floss, and I'm going to load up and do this like a warrior 2 position. And this is really great because when I straighten my leg, I'm going to have to really fire the quads. And then when I bend the knee, that band's actually going to bring the knee out. So I've turned my body slightly so the band is actually pulling the knee out. And that's going to give me the correct alignment of the knee when I'm doing the warrior 2 pose. And it also creates some space at the back of the kneecap. So this is a really nice one for the knee. After flossing in and out of the position, you can also stop and spend some time in the warrior 2 pose. And this can be really difficult with that heavy band really pulling the tension. You have to really maintain. So it's a great strengthening position for your warrior 2. Always come out with style. And then working into the banded lizard crawl. So we're taking that band all the way up against the inner groin, and then the non-exercising leg is going to extend back. So you're essentially ending up in a lunge position. The extended leg keeps the knee lifted, so don't get lazy here. And the band's going to be pulling the knee out, so it'll work into that lateral distraction. And then your job is to keep resisting and bringing the knee back in, which is going to be hard against that heavy band. So this will build strength and mobility in the hip capsule. Also, you can just work with the pigeon position, dropping out. And then the banded side squat, so that heavy band's going to create a little bit of, again, that hip lateral distraction while you're doing the Cossack squat from side to side. That'll really get the adductors. Then the banded squat, or the banded resting squat position. And here, I'm using the heavy band so that I can use the tension of my body, the stiffness that might be in the body, to actually push back and assist me in the squat position. Notice that I'm oscillating in and out of the range of motion here. I find that students struggle with this pose because they'll assume the band's just going to support them. And the idea of the band is that you're creating an interaction. So I'm pushing back into the band, and I'm also sensing how I can deepen the squat position. So I stand up, I back up, I put a little bit more tension in the band, and then I start to drop back down into it. Wiggle a little bit, and then back into the squat. And so each oscillation I'm able to go a little bit deeper. Keeping my back straight here, working into the ankles, the knee joints, trying to push the knees out. And then the banded pistol, which is a single-legged squat, similar to Marichyasana in yoga. And now I'm using the band again, so I'm pushing back into the band. That way I can extend the single leg forward while squatting on the other side. The pistol position challenges our full range of motion, ankle, knee, and hips. Working into some of the banded shoulder work here. And this is a nice one because the band is keeping the shoulder girdle anchored down, and then I just move through that windmilling action of the arm. Moving into a little internal rotation here, and then the overhead position of the arm. So working into a downward dog shape. The plank is also really nice here. And then that big mass of tissue at the top of the shoulder, the first rib and the shoulder girdle itself, is all being pulled back against the weight of the band. That way you can walk your hands quite far forward, and it's going to help to maintain that position. Working into the internal rotation of the shoulder. This is one that people really struggle with. So the band is going to keep that girdle pulled back and down, and then you can really start working the humerus into the internal rotation. This one's a bit advanced where I lock the elbow inside the knee, and then I'm going to use the contract relax method, pushing the elbow into the knee. That's the inhale. Then in the exhale, you let it relax deeper into the stretch. Afterwards, doing the dog pose to try to integrate some of that work, internal rotation, while in the overhead position. And just taking a moment to retest and feel the difference in the two arms after the banded drill. Next, we're going to work on the stability of the shoulder. Taking the band around the back of the wrist so you can hold it more passively, and then take it with a thumbs up grip. Here we're going to work on shoulder stability, meaning that the shoulder is going to shear forward and then lock back and down, bringing the opposite hand around to stabilize the rib cage as well. So you'll notice how the band goes forward, the arm internally rotates, that's a good stretch, and then we lock it back and down so we get that stability action in the shoulder. Just doing a few of these, and then getting into the overhead position by assuming in all fours. Here we want to be a little bit creative because the band can only go so high. So working into that shoulder position, we contract and relax. Basically, I'm going to exhale, relax, the arm's going to go forward, and then I'm going to contract and work on pulling the arm back and into that stable position. And we'll encourage the students to work in different angles here, so you have that idea of informed freestyle, moving around the shoulder, creating the lateral seam of the body, connecting the entire arm to the side body, down to the leg, down to the foot even. Notice that I'm continuing to load up tension in the band, moving the body a little further away from the wall even, and then contracting and relaxing. You can see how the arm locks back and down, and then how it releases and it stretches out. Eventually turning onto the back even, so I'm just working at different angles, and basically the same position, so the arm overhead. And here I can get the arm to move behind the head, so I get even more range of motion in that shoulder. If you get really into it, you can put a foam roller or a lacrosse ball under your shoulder. And always retesting when the students come out so they can just feel the difference in the two arms. Then the jackknife. This is a great one that I stole from Pilates. We're going to use the resistance band to pull against, so we keep the arms overhead. We're going to work on locking shoulders into the body just like the last exercise, and then concentrate on curling up each spinal segment one by one so you get that really smooth continuum through the entire trunk, midsection, the glutes, the legs are involved in this. So really a full body strengthener. And this is going to be even more challenging by using the resistance band rather than a fixed object. So it really does present a number of challenges for the students. So it should be a good one. Working on 10 repetitions or so, and always moving with controls. Twice as slow on the down. And then the last one is the banded squat roll down. So starting with the arms overhead, and then we're going to work on continuing to pull into the body as we eventually begin to sequence back. What's interesting here is that you're going to have to pull strongly against the resistance of the band to be able to pull back and curl down into this position. The band will then help you in the coming up part. So this is the opposite of the normal roll down exercise. We're using a different musculature. This will give a sense of integration through all of the sequences. We'll be rehearsing all of the skills we've already practiced. The shoulders are locking into the stable position. We're going to be working into that banded squat, and then we're going to be working on sequencing through the midsection, the trunk, as we curl down. Take this slow, work on precision with the movement. As you finish, the students can retest their resting squat position, see how everything feels.